Asylum Live, February 27th, 2025, with our special guest, Kirsten. Hey, Kirsten, say something funny. I tricked
Kirsten
her.
or Kirsten?
I know, I tricked her. She thought I was going to do something. I wanted to see her face. That was totally my fault. Because I said her name right. But anyway, thank you guys for being here tonight. We're going to have a blast. If you don't know Ke is a great designer. She does a lot of amazing stuff. And so the first question I'm going to ask her is, will you forgive me? I messed up our joke.
Tricking me? Betrayal.
No, I messed up. I was supposed to say Kirsten. I was supposed to say Kirsten, and then she was going to correct me and say Kirsten, and so I totally messed that up. And then
then he said it correctly, and I had nowhere to go.
She had nowhere to go with it. So that was pretty fun. Anyway, so I want to see a dragon.
You want to see a dragon?
I want to see a dragon.
Hold on, I got you.
I love her little dragons. If you don't know, she designs a lot of different things, a lot of articulated stuff, and this little dragon, when she has it in the videos, are all so cute to me. I love the idea of the finger puppet and everything. And yeah, if you've never seen these are just a lot of fun. Now, kind of, yeah. Now, show me you got the wings attached as well. How are you doing that?
So I'm not fancy. So they're literally just rubber bands.
Okay.
We've woven through holes.
Okay. That's kind of cool.
Like I said, I'm not that fancy, so I try to make it easy for myself and other people, because otherwise I'm not going to make it if it's not easy.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. I get that. Hey guys, come on in. Ice cream, says Nate. So that's always the question Nate wants to know. What's your favorite ice cream?
So very specifically, I like mint chocolate chip, but my favorite is the green ones with like the really thin shaved chocolates, not like the whole chocolate chips.
Do you have like a specific brand?
No, but I also really love cotton candy flavored ice cream from Brewster's.
Okay.
They have like the little crackly things in there.
Yeah.
But I haven't eaten that in like years, because I don't know if I can't eat it now. I don't know if it has gluten in it or not. So.
Yeah. That's always a tough one. You should drive by Brewster's and ask. I'm sure they know. Know.
They like high school employees that work there. They don't know.
I'm sure there's an adult somewhere in the back.
Somewhere.
Probably napping in the chair, right? Probably napping. Tasha Z3D, I'm trying to get these names right tonight, guys, is asking how are you so cool? What makes you so cool?
I don't know. I just try my best.
Okay.
It's a lot of anxiety in trying.
Oh, a lot of anxiety. If anxiety makes you cool, I might be on my way. They're like,
why do you do so many things? I'm like, I don't know. I'm afraid of failure. I guess that's why.
No, that makes sense. Now, you say you do a lot of stuff, and I know that you do. I know that most people see your 3D design. You show some other things on your channel, especially when you go way back. You'll see some other stuff. Guys, she started posting on TikTok. The first date I saw was October 15th of 2021. Right. And so if you go back there, you'll see a lot of really interesting things you probably did not know that she did. But, she does kind of give us a rundown. So 3D modeling, I know 2D. Mm-hmm. What other kinds of things do you do?
Well, I've also 2D has been 2D art illustration has kind of been my main avenue most of my life. Actually, if you won't see a ton of this on TikTok, but actually if you go to Instagram and you go even further back, you'll find like polymer clay keychains, like jewelry, earrings, and things like that I used to make, dog collars that I used to make.
Now, when you say used to make, you're talking dog collars. This isn't 3D printed. This is something else, right?
This is just...
so is this leather work? Is this sewing? What?
Both. I've done some leather work dog collar stuff. I've done like where you get basically like the nylon or polypropylene webbing.
Right.
And then you sew around like nice pretty fabrics, things like that, and then add the pretty buckles and all that. I did those.
Okay.
I did a lot of jewelry stuff in high school. I did keychain stuff, like little doggy keychains, which the doggy keychains that I did out of polymer clay is actually what has inspired some of my doggies keychain stuff that I do in 3D now.
Okay.
I've painted instruments. I had an instrument painting phase in high school,
Okay.
which like I don't know. I can move things eventually, but there's a cello
I
back
see the
there
cello. I
that has
see.
a peacock on it. If you
Okay.
want me to move things and
Oh
show y'all,
wow.
but
That's
I
cool.
did wood burning for a while, instrument painting. I also painted skateboards over on the same phase that I painted instruments.
My skateboards around here. I used to do art on skateboards. I lived in New Orleans and
Nice.
was a skater, and I did all sorts of things on people's boards.
That's fun.
Yeah, it was. Oh, that's cool. So, like, now, is this the artist in you? Is this the entrepreneur in you? What gets you moving on these types of things?
I think it's a little bit of both because, like, I've definitely always been an artist, my whole life. And it was kind of like, even like growing up when I was little, I was like, well, like, maybe I'll be an artist or a writer or maybe doing something with animals. That was kind of like the options in my
Okay.
brain.
Okay.
And I started doing like just commission artwork when I was like, I don't know, dude. I think I was like 14 or like 14 when I did like my first paid artwork.
Oh wow.
Um, and then just kind of kept going from there. And as an artist in the art industry, like things don't pay great. And so it was like always looking for, okay, like if I can do this, like how can I monetize this? How could I?
Okay.
And so it was a little bit the entrepreneur and the artist of like, okay, I want to do these art things all the time. And also like just crafty things, exploring, like I would start making jewelry or whatever for myself and I'd be like, oh, maybe I could sell this.
Okay.
And so it was kind of like, how do I, take whatever skills that I have and figure out how to monetize them because, we're out here living that starving artist life and I don't want to work for any other people because I want to have purple hair and I have high anxiety and I don't want to be responsible for messing up other people's things.
Oh, I gotcha. And that was going to be my question. So this is from more of a standpoint of you really wanted to support yourself. You wanted to be on your own. You were trying not to work for corporate or another person or that type of thing. You were just really trying to strive to support yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Now, so when you look back, I know you said like 14 or 15. Now we do have one painting, the dog painting that you sent me. Was that when
Mm-hmm.
you were younger?
Oh no,
No.
I didn't send you paintings from
Okay.
way back.
Oh,
I could
okay.
grab some if you want.
Okay. No, that's okay. That's okay. And we'll look at that painting in a minute, guys. It's a really cool painting. It's nice. It's big. So I mean, as a 14, 15-year old, what makes you strive that in that entrepreneurial sense to make money? Were you wanting to buy something? Did you just think money was freedom? What was the mindset you started from?
Honestly, I feel like I'm not a super like what's the word I'm looking for? Like I'm not a super like monetarily motivated person.
Okay.
And so it wasn't like, oh, like I want to make money. I think it was almost more of like, if I want to do art as a career, if I want to keep doing this long term, I got to start somewhere.
Right.
And so it was like, okay, well, obviously I wasn't charging that much because I wasn't that good that then. But it was like, okay, well, it was kind of like I said, I didn't think that much about it back then. But I think it was a little bit of like kind of validating the work and experience that I was doing.
Right.
For people to be like, oh yeah, like this is worth something. Like I'll pay you some for this or
Okay.
whatever. It was really cool. And I've always had like very supportive family members and parents.
Awesome.
And so I was, fortunate enough to be in a position where they didn't require me to like go get a job really early on as like a young teenager. They kind of let me do my thing for a
Right.
bit. And kind of figure out how to make money on my own for extra little things that I wanted. And so I was really fortunate in that aspect. So I kind of had that space to kind of focus on and enjoy my own stuff in that way.
Okay. Okay. No, that makes sense. And I have a nephew who's he's hitting that 14, 15-year old. He got a printer and he realized really quick he wanted another one. So he's like,
Mm-hmm.
I can make money with this one and I can get another one. He
Exactly.
started kind of thinking that way. And, he's done really, really well and has branched off into some really interesting things. And now he's not blessed with the whole ADHD jump from thing to thing. He actually sticks with it. And
Wow.
so he's going to do really well.
Good for him.
So, but no, that's cool. That is interesting. And so you started there. Now, did you like? Did you like school? What kind of classes did you enjoy? You didn't at all? No, you just wanted.
I hated school. So I was actually homeschooled most of my life,
Okay, okay,
which was not the part I hated. Like I was fine being homeschooled. I just I hated everything that I wasn't passionate about.
okay, okay.
Everything that was not my idea. And I was like, oh my gosh. And so I was really just straight up homeschooled with like my mom helping and like the computer curriculum and stuff that we worked on. And I was like, I got good grades, but I was struggling in my brain.
Yeah.
Later on, as an adult, we have learned that I have a sensory processing disorder.
Oh,
And so me sitting down staring at a computer, I would say like history, whatever.
right.
And I would read like the book that they have for me for history. And my doctor explained it to me. She was like, basically, she was like, you're reading text and you're reading it and you don't have any issues reading and comprehending it. But she's like, the problem is your sensory processing has a struggle. And so your brain is spending so much energy reading and comprehending, it doesn't have the extra energy to remember it. Because I remember I would sit here and like
Huh.
read things over and over and over again. And as soon as I'm done reading it, like it's
It's
gone from my
gone.
brain.
Is
And
there
things are still like that.
is there a name for that?
No, because I'm not like, I mean, I'm neurodivergent. We're sure I'm neurodivergent in some way, but don't quite fit like any exact definition or diagnosis. But she's like, yeah, like the sensory processing, like parts, the lobes in your brain that handle sensory processing
Right.
are jacked up, basically.
Okay. Okay.
And so so I hated school. I actually had several years where, um, this is don't do what I did. Just do what I say. Whereas several years where I straight up cheated my way through these computer programs.
Oh, there you go. So this was a
And
computer-based type thing. This wasn't like one of the group homeschools, or it wasn't this was kind of your.
so I had those too, but
Okay.
those were like the extracurricular things
Okay.
of
Hey,
like, let's go
hold
take
on
art
one sec. I'm
classes
gonna let
or
you finish that in a second, guys. If you are having issues on TT, jump over to YT. People over there don't seem to have issues. I don't know why, but periodically we have these issues. I apologize for that. If you can jump over there, um, we got Lisa Granny Susie's hanging out over there. We got Dragon Girl. She's hanging out over there. So we have people over there. So if you're having issues on the TT, jump over to the YT and that should solve your issues. I apologize. We're also on Insta, Twitch, and Rumble. If you want to look at those platforms as well, check out my bio. You can find the links in there. I apologize. I'm sorry. But
weird.
so yeah, I don't know why it happens. It happens sometimes. Okay, so backing up. So
Cool.
group homeschool. Let's go through that again. Like
So ever since I was really little, we had what we called co-ops.
yeah, exactly.
And so we're really for the most of our like core, what you are like required to be learning, we did at home.
Okay.
And I know like all through elementary school, it was with my mom and we used books and stuff. And it was around middle school that we switched to this computer curriculum that we had. But we had this one kind of the very first co-op that I remember where we would go on, one day a week, had a bunch of friends there. Like basically my whole family went, except for my dad because he was out working. And you get to learn, like we had like sign language one year. We
Okay.
like learned German one year. Not that I remember any of it. Like we had different art and craft classes. Like And like as we started getting older, like middle school and stuff, we had some classes that were actually kind of counted towards my core
Okay.
education.
Yeah.
And then kind of transferred from that one to a different co-op as I got into higher middle school, high school. And those were more, I did some extracurricular things there, like, like guitar arts and stuff.
Hmm.
But I also did more of like a lot of my, like, I think I did like biology there and
Okay.
like some of my more core stuff that
Right.
my mom was like, I'm not teaching you this.
Yeah. And that's kind of I grew up in Mississippi. I wasn't homeschooled, I was public school, but I had a ton of friends who were in that
Mm-hmm.
type of network where maybe a parent was into math or into
Yep.
physics or and they would get a group together and they would teach all of it. And the homeschool has changed so much from what it kind of started, where everybody just kind of, you sat at your house and you learned things.
Yeah.
It's changed so much. Just really interesting. Just so you were homeschooled, you said, for most of your life, so which that
Mm-hmm.
kind of brings us like, did they stop homeschooling you?
So I switched from homeschooling to a private school in 11th grade in high school.
Oh.
And the reason was because of that sensory processing
Mm-hmm.
issues. And I was just trying to like cheat and skim my way through my computer program. And
Gotcha.
my mom was like, "You are not learning anything."
Gotcha.
And at this point, my parents are expecting that I would go to college. And so my mom was like, if you're just like coasting your way through trying to get the grades and like you're not retaining anything because at this point we didn't know that I had these sensory
Right.
issues.
Right.
And so she's like, I think we need to put you in like some sort of a more structured in-person school setting to where like you have multiple different avenues to where you can be absorbing and like applying the information you're trying to learn. So really like they put me in this private school 11th and 12th grade like purely for like so I'd be ready for like college in the
Okay.
real world and
Yeah.
be able to actually do things.
Okay. And so did you go on to college?
I did I went to 3 different schools over 2 years and then I dropped out and got married.
Oh, there you go. Now, what were you doing while you were in college?
I started with an arts degree.
Okay.
And so I did a semester of art. Um, was it a semester? It was either a semester or I think it was a semester. And then I was like, again, this whole time hating school.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
my dad's an engineer, and so I'm the youngest of 5 girls. My dad is like, you need to go to school to be successful
I gotcha. Yeah.
because in his field that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I was like, sure, whatever, I'll go. Hated it, and I was in like my art classes and stuff, and I remember I was like finishing way faster than anybody else in my class, like
Right.
our little still life portraits. And it's like I wasn't the best. I was just efficient somehow. But I remember like that after that first semester was over, and I was like, Mom, I don't know if it's like worth it for me to get an art degree. I feel like I could just figure it out on my own. And
Yeah.
well, do you feel like you've learned anything? And like maybe it was, I don't remember if it was 1 or 2 semesters I was in that art degree. And I was like, honestly, no. And I was like, I should probably, what would be better for me, it would be to change to marketing. Because at this point in time, I already knew that I kind of wanted to go
Right.
more entrepreneur route.
Yeah.
And so then I think I guess it was 1 semester of art and then 2 semesters of, technically I had a marketing degree.
Okay.
Or what's
You
the
were
word?
associate's degree, that type of thing, or
No, I didn't actually get a degree, but like what's the
anybody know?
major? At a
Major. There
marketing
we go.
major.
Okay, there we go.
But I think I only took like one marketing class because at that point in time you're still doing all your basic
Right.
college courses
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah.
And then I met my husband actually the first year out of high school that fall after I graduated, and we had our relationship and stuff, and then we were getting engaged and stuff, and I convinced my parents. I was like, I can't be doing school and getting married in the same fall. And they were like, okay, so like take a semester off And then like, we want you to finish your degree. And I was like, sure.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
And then fall semester goes by and like it's Christmas. And my husband is like, didn't you tell your parents that you're going to go back to school? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, do you want to go back to school? And I was like, absolutely not. And he
Yeah.
was like, well, he's like, if you don't want to go to school, I'm not paying for it. So you better talk to your parents about it. If they want you to go to school, they can pay for it.
There you go. There you go. That's funny. That's funny. Now,
And
hey,
then,
who wants to,
sorry,
while she's still talking, I'll ask this question. Who wants to know how she met her husband? Who wants to hear that story? Raise
it's a
your
good
hand. Raise
story.
your hand. Anyway, keep going with what you were saying.
And so like I had this whole, at this point too, like my art freelancing commission work was actually starting to ramp up during the semester that I took off of school, right? And so I was like, oh, things are actually starting to roll and be doing things, and I'm making some money. And so I prepared this whole speech for my dad. And I was like, I had all the bullet points of like, like why I don't need an art degree, why I don't need a marketing degree, and like why that would just be wasting my money and my time because I'm already growing my art career and I'm going to lose my momentum. I had the whole speech. And so we show up to go talk to him about it. And before I even get to my speech, he's like, I just feel like if you don't want to finish school, you don't have to. And I feel like whatever you want to do, you're going to find a way to do it no matter whether you have a degree or not. And I was like, thank you, but also I had my speech.
Exactly.
But that's what you get when you're the youngest of 5 daughters
There
and
you
not
go.
the firstborn, because they never would have done that with my oldest
Right.
sister.
Right. I'm the oldest. I understand. I know
Yeah,
exactly how that works. So that's
exactly.
funny. So did you give your speech anyway, or did you just move
I
on?
kind of did. Afterwards, I was like, yeah, you're right, because these are all the reasons that I had already prepared to tell you
That's
about.
great. That is great. All right. So we have a vote, and people do want to hear how you met your husband.
Okay,
They
great.
want to hear that story. So let's do a quick one on that. Like, was this like he was at your graduation and you threw your cap and it hit him in the face and you're like, oh no, what happened?
So my best friend, that I'm still one of my best friends that I met at the private school that I went to in 11th grade, she was my best friend, and her mom and my husband's mom are best friends.
Okay.
And so I had like heard here and there, like during high school, about like Connor's family and like his crazy brother and like his mom who's awesome. And like Connor was like the crazy boy who had a motorcycle at the time, and this and this and this, and he crashed his truck and all this. And so I was like, oh, like I vaguely know about this family.
Right.
And then after me and my friend Olivia had graduated, we kind of had our little friend group that we were hanging out with over the summer and into the fall of that semester we started college. Um, and we had what we called waffle weekend, where we got together and we all made waffles and we watched Pitch Perfect with our little friend group.
Right.
And at the time, Connor went to college up north a couple of hours, and he had his license suspended because he had gotten arrested a couple of weeks prior
Huh. Yikes.
for
Yikes.
failing to maintain lane because he dropped a burrito off of his car dashboard and didn't realize that he had a super speeder ticket on
Okay.
his record. And so he was not able to drive. And so our friend that was coming to Waffle Weekend with me and Olivia, he went to the same college as Connor did. And they like vaguely knew each other. And
Right.
so Connor would come home on the weekends to work. Like he worked at the Converse store. And so he happened to grab a ride with our friend Josh, come down. And because Olivia's mom and Connor's mom are best friends, Olivia's mom invited Connor. She was like, why don't you just tell him to come over with Josh?
There you go.
And Olivia was like, I guess he's like my weird brother, sure. And so Connor came to Waffle Weekend with us, and that's how I met him. And then
That's
later
awesome.
on, I was like, Olivia, is that the weird guy, the weird boy with like the motorcycle that you were telling me about, and who's like kind of crazy? And she was like, yeah, that one. And I was like, interesting. And then he just kind of joined that friend group from there on.
Right.
So it's a very interesting story.
How long did y'all date?
We dated. Okay, so you gotta understand. I grew up in like the southern evangelical church,
Hmm.
homeschooled.
Yeah.
And so we dated like, I want to say a year and a half before getting engaged, and
Okay.
worked together 2 years before we got married. So we got
Gotcha.
married when I was only 20 and he was 21,
Okay.
which sounds crazy to most people, but like within those circles,
Oh
it's
no.
not that
So
crazy.
my dad's a Baptist pastor. I
I remember
understand.
you mentioning
So
that. So I'm like, you know.
it is what it is. And so but no, I get that. So okay, well that's cool. That's a good story. That's fun. I like that. All right, so college, we got all that. I know. So when do you feel like your 2D art really kind of took off on its own? And I
I think it,
specifically want to talk 2D right now because we're going to show
mhm,
some things in just a second.
cool. I had various phases of 2D, like, that you can tell because I gave you a variety of
Yeah.
different styles
Yep.
of art. And so, but I would say it really was within that semester that I took off from college that I was able to, while in the middle of getting married, kind of really invest in my artwork.
Right.
And kind of my social media presence. Like, you'll see stuff on, like, again, if you go to my Instagram, that goes way back.
Yeah.
You'll see that stuff that I was working on. Like, I think you'll see wedding invitations on there from like when I was engaged
Oh, cool.
and we were working on this
Okay.
stuff. Um, and so that when I kind of had that, was out of school and didn't have that stress. And again, I was fortunate enough to be in a position where I don't remember. I think I was doing mostly freelance at that point. I wasn't, my parents were still paying for most of my things
Right.
because I was fortunate enough to be in that position. So there wasn't a whole lot of pressure of go out and you have to make this much money immediately. And so I kind of had that freedom to go and, okay, let's really ramp up my marketing, like my social media. I actually streamed on Twitch a whole lot at that time. And that's where I got a lot of my commissions. I did a ton of pet portraits at that time. I like low key kind of wish that I hadn't stopped streaming on Twitch because I was streaming on Twitch when they very first introduced the art section on Twitch.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, I could have been big on Twitch.
Yeah. Yeah.
If I had stuck there. Um, and so that, and again, I bounce around all sorts of different mediums and subjects and stuff. But that was kind of when I was like, oh, okay, like my marketing and like my watercolor, I was doing a lot of watercoloring and digital at that point. It's kind of starting to pick up, and now I'm able to kind of have time to market this, and I'm getting more commission, doing a lot of commission work at that time.
Okay.
And I was also kind of thinking through, as we got married in the first couple of years of our marriage, like different jobs here and there, but then also kind of thinking, okay, like what is the long-term goal? Like, do I want to be doing pet portraits my whole life?
Right.
Or like, I really love the fantasy stuff. Obviously, pet portraits sold well, but they were kind of boring. And so it was kind of, I did a lot of pet portrait stuff. I did a lot of book illustration stuff around that time because I was like, oh, like freelance book illustration, that's kind of cool. Kind of gets me a little more into more different styles and stuff,
Right.
which sometimes I loved and sometimes I hated.
Yeah.
And I really, sorry, go on.
No, you're fine. So is there a specific style? I mean, most of what I notice, when we're looking, we'll go back to there and we'll just kind of look through some of those. Most as I go through here, now this is your fantasy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Now this is most of the fantasy stuff that I've seen here is a very, very specific style. There seems to be a big, heavy inspiration behind that. And so I'll just pop through some of these and we'll find some more of those. There's the color schemes, the colors, the way they fade and everything all seem to be very, very consistent. Where does that inspiration come from?
I think I think like a lot of kids, like nerds my age,
Mm-hmm.
we grew up watching a lot of cartoons and like fantasy or superhero cartoons. And so really a lot of I would say my biggest, and obviously like I watch Disney and stuff, which I think you can see a hint of in my style.
A little bit.
But my favorites were like the X-Men cartoons and like superhero cartoons and Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Okay.
And so I think you can see a lot of both of those in a little bit of my style.
Yeah, I see that. I also see a lot of the and I know we talked about it, the Prince of Dragons series.
Exactly, which is funny because most of these I did before I had seen that.
Yeah.
but they are by the
Um,
same studio that made Avatar,
yeah.
so it makes sense.
And so it's a little the Prince of Dragons is a little darker kind of feel than
Mm-hmm.
the Avatar version, but
Yep.
it's definitely got that style, and you almost kind of nailed one of the species in the Prince
I
of
know, right?
Dragons. It says Atala, I think is her name, but
Yes.
it's so it's really really cool, and so that's where that inspiration comes from. That's pretty neat. But then we've got all the rainbow. Are these this rainbow series? Was this a phase? Is this something you did for a long time?
I've kind of gone in and out of the rainbow. You see like the digital rainbow pieces there.
Right.
And those are actually a homage back to, so I have also in there some scans or pictures of those watercolor rainbow pieces.
Okay. Let me find those.
That's kind of what I had done originally. That's what I was streaming a lot of on
Right.
Twitch when I back in the day. It's somewhere in there. I didn't
Yeah.
send a whole lot of
We'll
them.
find it.
Uh,
No, it's on down. It's
somewhere.
further down.
It's close. We're
Yeah.
getting there. There it is.
That's
There's one. That's a
yeah.
scan. That's a watercolor traditional piece.
Okay.
And I don't even. I think I've okay. So another inspiration that is a very, very different side of my brain than the cartoon stuff is I grew up like obsessed with Lisa Frank.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
and I remember when I graduated high school, we went. It's extremely specific. We went to Savannah, Georgia for like our little graduation trip with like me and some of my friends. And I got this painting, like was at an art gallery, and I found this painting that very much had that same kind of rainbow style. And I was like, it didn't have the splatters, but it had, instead of black, they used blues and purples, and it was like this cat portrait.
Right.
And I was like, I am in love with this. Like, this makes my heart so happy.
That's great.
And like that was, I don't know, that's just like what made my brain happy. And
Huh.
so I bought that painting. And then from there, that was kind of my inspiration of like, with all of my art, I'm like, I want to make things that like I just love and just make me happy. And so it's like, my style is very different than like what that artist did. They did more realistic stuff. But I was like, I started getting into watercolor the spring before I graduated high school.
Okay.
And then at some point started picking up like that rainbow splatter.
Rainbow
Is a
splatter.
watercolor technique.
Yeah.
Just started picking up that, and I was like, this is cool.
Yeah.
Like, this is fun. And then the animals, and like if you look at a lot of my stuff, I'm very attracted to like very saturated colors and very high contrast.
Yes, very much so.
Which is what you see in a lot of like what I wear also.
Right.
And so
well, this one,
so it's
I think this one's a really good example. Now that one, I'm going to make that one a little bit bigger just because I want y'all to really see what this one is. I think if you'll notice, well, dadgummit, you'll notice that down here at the bottom, come on, go bigger. Come on. It doesn't want to go bigger. Can I make it? There we go. That's at least a little bit bigger.
There you go.
And so now, is this a scan?
No, that's the original painting.
Okay.
That I took a picture of before I sent it off to its owner.
You see her feet down there, guys.
Yeah, this thing was ginormous.
Yeah, so you can kind of get an idea of how big this piece was. I think it's really good. That's one of my favorite. That's one of my favorite. So yeah, so watercolor. You definitely. I always enjoy seeing the techniques that people create that make them more, that individualize them.
Yeah.
And that's always, and that I think that's where, when you talk about being entrepreneurial and everything, that's kind of something that you seem to be really good at, is finding that, I don't want to say niche because it's more of a style versus a specific area. Because you've moved into kind of the 3D area and you've done the same thing. And we're going to talk a lot more about that in just a minute, but we're going to take a break. I'm going to give you a minute to drink some of that water you have, and I'm going to talk to everybody that's watching, but thank you for being here, and I'll call you back in just a second. Guys, thank y'all so much for being here tonight. Thank you for the likes. We've got a lot of people following. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. I love that y'all are enjoying what is happening here, and I enjoy the questions that y'all are asking. Keep those questions coming in. We've got another half hour to go, and we will just find out as much as we can. We're going to move into kind of the 3D printing phase with her and talk about some things there. So we'll start to ask some more of those questions I'm sure y'all definitely want to know a little bit more about. But just thank y'all for coming in. Keep sharing this out. Keep letting people know that this is going on. If you missed the first half of this and you're just now coming in, I will have the KE interview up on YouTube by the middle of next week. It usually takes me about a week, a little less than a week to get it up there. Jump ship to YouTube. A lot of people are jumping ship to YouTube, by the way, just because it seems to be doing better tonight than it is on TikTok over there. So just for everybody there. But we're on Twitch, we're on Instagram, we're on YouTube, we're on Rumble, we're on TikTok. So we're in a lot of places every Thursday night at 8 p.m. And we're always just trying to get to know the creators, the people that we enjoy watching. And I just encourage y'all to be a part of this, be a part of the community. If you're not a part of the community, you should jump over to our Discord and get in there. We have calendars in there. I have a calendar that you can go see all the different things that are happening. We're going to be talking about that a little bit later because we got a wine and paint coming up. I've got an amazing guest. I'm going to go ahead and say the name. Zach Friedman is going to be here next week. I'm really excited to get to talk with him. He's one of the first people I saw when I started 3D printing, and he's one of the people that I'm really excited to talk to myself. But what I do want to do is I want to take some time right now just to kind of roll some credits, guys. A lot of you really support the show, and I just want to thank you, and I want to make you a part of the show just by talking about you. Now, the first people I want to talk about are the sustaining donations. Those are the people who give a monthly to the show, and it helps me do the things. It helps me with my hosting. It helps me with the streaming that I have to get. It helps me with software. There's a lot of different things. And so if you're a subscriber or if you go to the website and find other ways to be a part, that's where the sustaining donations come in. And I really, really appreciate that. So we got Killer Bite Workshop, Blazing Prints, 3D Printed Like Me, and Dragon Girl Design Co. The next one is the gifters, the people who come in and give gifts in all the different places. And these are the people who in the last 7 days have been the largest gifters: Lee Shepard, Nate's Print Shop, Clove 3D Prints, Alien Destination, Rains Makes, Finn's Forge, Maker M, Ricera 3D, Tasha Z3D, and Platypus Dad. Just thank y'all so much for that. I really appreciate y'all giving those gifts and being a part of the show in that way, and just expressing how you feel about what's going on. And then the watchers. Can't forget the watchers. Those are the people who hang out and become a part of the conversation. And this is based on watch hours. We really track these things, and I try to know who is really being a part of the show. And so we have Nate's Print Shop, 3D Everything, Brandon, Jazzy, I want to say Adam. He gave me permission earlier. Bionic Teddy, STG58, Basana, Ricera, and the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. And I just want to thank y'all so much for being a part of the show and being here. You know, I always talk about the value for value, and that's the people watching the show. That's the time, right? Giving of your time to be a part of what's going on here, jump in the Discord, being a part. The talent, if you have things that you want to help out on the show. Tuesday night's a variety show. We're always looking for people to be parts of debate. We're looking for artwork. We're looking for music. We're looking for prints. We're looking for people who want to talk about software, blah, blah. So many things. If you want to be a part of the show, especially Tuesday nights, reach out to me. If you know guests we need to talk to, reach out to me. And then that third thing is treasure. I don't belabor the treasure. We talked about that already, but I really, really appreciate y'all being a part and being my producers, the people who support the show. Y'all are amazing to me, and I really, really, really appreciate that. So I'm not going to do it to talk too much longer. We're going to go ahead and we're going to bring KE in, and we're going to ask her some more questions, and we're going to get into the 3D printing. So I'm going to say it right. Kirsten.
Good job.
All right. I dated a Kirsten in college, so it's a little hard.
It's very confusing.
I know, right? First 3D printer.
So I would say, I think it was does it count if I didn't own it and if it was my husband's printer?
Sure. We'll go with that. Yeah.
The first printer I used when I got started was a Prusa i3.
The MK3?
MK3,
Yeah,
that
MK3.
one.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, when we still have that one, it just hasn't been used recently.
Yeah. They're good printers. They feel a little slow nowadays, but they're good printers. They're very good.
Yeah, it did a good job.
All right. So what was your second printer?
The second printer was the Bamboo X1C.
Okay. So
which after I'd gotten into designing, my husband surprised me with and said, once we get to this many Patreon members, we'll get a Bamboo. And then he surprised me and got it earlier than that.
Okay. That's cool. That's awesome. So you've got to, and I want to talk about the supportive spouse thing, because I know a lot of people deal with that. We'll get into that one. Somebody remind me in a few minutes. We want to talk about that. But okay. So what was your very first print? Do you remember?
So this is the thing. My husband has had 3D printers as long as we've been since before we were married.
Okay.
He worked on printers in college, all of this. So since we've been married, he's been doing 3D printing.
Okay.
And he would print some things and give them to me. I have little low poly Pokemon that he made me, and little dragons and stuff that he made me. But I did not print them. The first thing I printed was test printing the first design that I did. I didn't touch the printer before. I was like, I want this thing, and I'm going to learn all the things at once.
Yeah. Okay. I gotcha. Okay. Favorite print then. What's your favorite 3D print you've ever done? I know that's always such a hard one, and it changes so much.
It changes so much. One of my Patreon members, they always give me a hard time. They're like, you say everything that you release is your new favorite. I'm like, that's because it is.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't judge me. The puppets are some of my favorites.
Okay.
My tiger, again, we talked about the Lisa Frank inspiration, right?
You're right. Yeah.
This little tiger with the rainbow stripes, just hits that little happy Lisa Frank part of my brain.
Right.
And makes me so happy.
That owl you did it for me.
There he is.
That owl is so cool.
Yeah. He's a good one. And I also like one of the bookends, the dragon bookends, which a lot of people have seen. That really was one of my very early on designs, but it has really held up as still one of my favorites. Okay. And I think a lot of people's favorite.
Yeah. Which one have we decided to use for the wine and paint? Guys, by the way, she's going to be... Which one?
I think it was the bookends.
Okay, that's what I thought when you said that. Yeah. She's the designer for our wine and paint coming up next month, which I'll talk about in a little bit. Sign-ups aren't yet, but she's going to be the designer. She'll be there hanging out with us, and we're going to be painting one of her models. That's cool. So now... so everyone is your favorite. People in the room, let me know what your favorite model she has designed. Let me know your favorite model. Say something about that. List out some of the models that you really, really enjoy. Because I like the little finger puppet. And then my favorite latest one is this I'm going to call it the modular dragon.
Yeah, that's what I called it.
That one is really cool. That one is really cool.
This is my candle.
Look at that, guys. Now, the beauty of this, so I'm going to make you big. This is not one print. So how many print beds are we talking about?
This was 9 print beds total, I believe. Because basically I'd maxed out my P1S and X1C for the largest piece, which I believe was the tail, because it's if I can get her up. You see that feathery tail?
Yeah.
It's real long.
Yeah.
That was the largest piece. And so maxed it out. I think that she's 306%.
Wow.
And then scaled everything to that place. And then put all my pieces in here because, we got duplicate pieces of small, medium, large body segments. Kind of duplicated in how the different proportions I thought I would need for different pieces. And then told Bamboo to just arrange my plates for me because I didn't want to do it. And it did. And it turned out to be about 9 plates.
That's always a good way to do it. I'm
not doing this.
What this one, is it can you add more sections? Like, can they all be pieced together
You can
like
do as
in
many as
different
you want.
ways, and you can make it as
Hmm.
long as you want? And that is
So
awesome.
like, so like we have her, right, and like she's big, long. I'm someone who, if you know my dragons, you all know I don't like my style is more of the. I say that my dragons are more of almost mammalian anatomy
Okay.
than like serpent reptile
Right.
that you see a lot of.
Yeah.
And so she kind of has those proportions. This guy is the exact same system,
Okay.
but you see, like, he looks like a very different dragon.
Right.
He has
Very
a
much
different
so.
head, he has different wings, and then he's more of like a wyvern
Yeah.
than the dragon. He's more lean and lanky. And then this guy is also the same set of pieces, so he's a little bit longer. And again, like I'm such a like I'm so anal about like my body proportions for animals because I've been doing them so long. So
Yeah.
even he's still pretty kind of more similar body proportions than my big girl. But I've had some of my Patreon members have been printing them, and I love seeing like people are doing like the longer necks, the longer bodies, because you can just add in,
Right.
as many of these pieces as you want.
Yeah.
And I love to see it because I'm like, oh, like I didn't even recognize my own dragon because you made it your own dragon with just the pieces. So it's really fun to see what people do with those pieces.
Oh, that is cool. So we have people. We have Boop the Snoot.
Oh my gosh. Hold on.
What is Boop the Snoot? Oh, okay. I gotcha. Okay. All right. We've got someone's sold the bookends. The
Bookends, yeah.
spider. Somebody's saying the spider is their favorite.
Oh, the spider's a good one. I haven't.
So,
That one came out last year.
okay. Okay. That's cool. So,
Around fall. Yeah.
what brought you from 2D design to 3D design?
Um. So there's a bit of an intermittent story to
Okay.
kind of bridge us there, because basically I was doing 2D illustration full time. I was doing a lot of book illustration at the time, and again, trying to figure out like what I really wanted to do
Right.
that fit kind of like my style, what I enjoyed, and I decided on. I was like, I really love like fantasy game development style stuff,
Okay.
and I was like, I would love to do like concept art, splash art for these games, and so started building a portfolio towards that. Um, And then in the midst of building my portfolio and doing freelance, throughout that year, I totally borked up my wrist
Oh,
from
I gotcha.
overworking it.
Yeah.
And also that was around the time where my chronic illnesses started to really kind of crop up and mess with my energy and my brain fog too. And so first it kind of became this thing of like, oh man, like I was like, I will not be able to sit in a studio at a desk and draw for 8 hours a day because my hand will not be able to handle that.
Right.
I don't think ever again.
Yeah.
So like, what do I do from here? And then I was doing freelance at the time, and with my different illnesses and stuff affecting my brain energy and my brain fog, I was like, I'm totally burning out on freelance also. Like I am exhausted. And also I was working in a lot of styles and stuff that were not me and I did not love. So actually, between that and 3D, there's a little bit of 2D. Like I said, there's a whole story. I did dog training professionally for like 5 years.
Okay. Wow. I didn't
Which
see
is
that one
very
coming.
different.
That was that on my Kirsten punch card this year.
I know. There was a very long phase of time where everybody that I met, everybody that I knew me as the dog lady, the dog trainer, not as Kirsten the artist, which I grew to hate. And I feel much more myself in the position that I'm in now.
Okay.
So that was interesting.
Okay. Okay. No, that's interesting. That is interesting. Okay. So you had the wrist injury and everything, and you started moving in to what kind of pushed you into 3D? How did you get all the way here to like Nomad and to, you know?
So we did the dog training. This was also, we moved to California during this time, which was a whole thing for my husband's job. And so I did dog training basically almost the whole time we were there and before we left. My sister's a dog trainer also, so that's always been one of my big interests growing up my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
I had just kind of been like, art was more the thing.
Right.
But I'm still learning about dog training and being invested in that and volunteering with animals. Obviously, love animals because that is where a lot of my work revolves around. But then once art became like maybe not, I was like, dog training.
Okay. Okay.
So picked that up. And then, we moved to California. I worked a couple different jobs, like with a dog training company and dog food stores, and then eventually started my own business doing dog training again. And really, and then in this whole time, my chronic illnesses have been developing, which I know we're going to talk about in a little bit.
Yeah.
But it was a very stressful time while I was this phase of life in California and also dog training at the same, like just both of those things for different reasons. And so with my illnesses and everything progressing and like those stress factors, it got to a point where my dog training business was actually pretty successful. I had 2 employees that contracted under me, and like we worked
cool.
out. We were all disabled women. It was dope. I loved my girls. I met some horrible people in dog training, but also some amazing people.
Yeah.
But it got to the point where because of my illnesses and just stress and not allowing my body and my brain to rest, it got like 1 week. It's like I tell people, I'm like, my brain just broke. I was like, could be standing in a session with a dog training client and I could handle a dog and I could do all the things, but I'm, of course, when you're training, you're really training people, and I have to explain why I'm doing what I'm doing. Why does this make sense to the dog? Like, what is the effect of the dog? What is the dog's mindset? All these things. And I would stand there and be stuttering on my words because my brain would go blank. I could not compile and articulate the words, the things that I knew like the back of my hand,
right?
Like these techniques and these things. And I was like, oh crap. Like, it was like, I couldn't do anything about it, like physiologically or whatever. Like my brain just stopped. And I was like, I'm going to go on medical leave.
Okay.
For a bit.
Yeah.
Because again, at this point, I had these other girls working for me too. So thankfully, I was able to hand off a lot of clients and they ran my business while I just did administration stuff. And went on like a little bit of a soul searching, kind of rejuvenating journey.
Okay.
About 6 months in, I had made the discovery that I hate dog training. And I actually don't like other people's dogs. I only like my dogs. And I remember I had this conversation with one of my friends and I told her, I met her through dog training. And I was like, I don't like other people's dogs. And she was like, what do you mean? And I was like, listen, think about how many times have you ever seen me call and ask for attention or engage with a dog that is not my own outside of just work and business. And she's like, oh my gosh, you don't like other people's dogs.
Yeah.
But I had the knowledge and I had the experience and I knew I wanted to help people.
Yeah.
And I knew I could use dog training to help make those people's lives easier with their dogs, with that knowledge that I had. And I knew it could make me money because I already knew from pet portraiture that the dog industry was a pretty fruitful place.
Right.
And so I took that medical leave, figured out I hated dog training. And then I was like, well, now what am I going to do? Because I'm still technically own this business. And that was the phase where I actually started getting back into art. That's where I started TikTok. That's where you see that.
Yep, we see that.
When that starts up. And
so this is 2021 is basically what you're saying. Okay.
Yep. Like second half of 2021. And that was when I really started, I've done freelance. Try to figure out what people, I've done freelance. I thought about making portfolios for this company and doing these book stuff. My whole life been trying to figure out what type of art do I need to do that people will value enough to pay me for my life, for a living,
Right.
And so, and I kept burning out on every different box that I tried to fit myself in. And so then when I was on my medical leave from dog training, I actually got back into art purely for my mental health. And that's where you see a lot of those. That's where the digital rainbow paintings come in.
Right.
I was doing a ton of those at that time because again, that's what makes my brain happy.
Okay.
And those actual digital paintings, you see they have the splatters. Those are actually grabbed and cropped from scans of my original paintings with the real textures.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so I was doing those, and then I also started doing, just really starting to embrace, like, what do I love and what brings me joy, what am I passionate about, and just not trying to fit anyone's particular style or expectation. So I was doing the animals, and then I also slowly started getting back into doing like my fantasy stuff, my original art characters and things like that. Characters and stories and things that I had literally some of them back to middle school. But, I kind of grew up with this community that was very supportive of my art, but it was also kind of like, like you're really good at art, but you need to figure out how to do things other than just like dragons and animals, because otherwise you're not going to be able to make a real career out of it.
Right.
And so it's kind of like I spent most of my life kind of trying to reach that goal of like, okay, so I can't just do what I love and what brings me joy. I need to get good at backgrounds, which I hated. I need to get good at people, which I hated for years. I kind of like them now. Like, I need to get good at like high detail stuff. I need to get good at this and this, because otherwise it's not valuable enough.
Right.
And so during this phase, when I was taking leave off from training and doing art for my mental health, I really just tossed all that out the window. And I was like, I'm going to draw in whatever style is most natural to me. And that's where you actually see my style really, especially with people and the kind of semi-realism there.
Yeah.
That's where you see my style really solidify in there, because I was just allowing myself to flow naturally.
Okay.
And then I was like, I'm just going to like do fun art with like my dragons and my characters and like whatever makes me happy. And I had a real hard phase where I was like, that entrepreneur inside my brain, I was like, I need to monetize this. And I was like, no, I don't. I need to just calm down my brain for a second.
Yeah.
And just like, let me do my thing.
Yeah.
And so that was a good phase where I kind of got back into art, and I was doing the whole art thing. And then I was like, well, maybe I could do a little bit of freelance. And I went back to pet portraiture because that was easy on my brain. I had a webcomic at this time. Technically, the webcomic is still out there, but I don't advertise it because I have not been updating it, and I don't want to disappoint people. But they are out there.
Okay.
And during that phase, again, my husband's been 3D printing this whole time.
Right.
Just in the background. His own hobby. He also designs his own stuff, like mechanical stuff, as he's in tech and like mechanics and stuff. So he's extremely smart. So he just kind of figured out how to design his own little stuff in like Fusion 360, yes, this and this. And at the time, he worked with a VR company. And one of the people in his company had recommended him to try Nomad Sculpt.
Yeah.
Because he was interested in like kind of 3D modeling, just playing around with stuff.
Okay.
And so he got Nomad Sculpt and touched it, like played with it like 2 times. Like I think he made a mushroom. And then one day, like he printed me a MacGyver dragon. Like, I don't know if you can see like the gold one over there.
Okay.
But the MacGyver classic, the Imperial Dragon or whatever.
With the horns and
Yes.
Yeah.
And I was like, because he knew I love dragons. And I was like, I love this. But I love it, but it doesn't look like my dragons.
Right.
And literally, I was back in this art phase and like creative phase. During this phase, I'd also figured out the iPad was much gentler on my wrist.
Okay.
Than the tablets I'd been using. So that was part of the things that helped that. And I told my husband, I was like, I want to make a dragon. And he was like, really? And I was like, I want to make a dragon. I was like, I decided that I want this thing. I'm going to make it. And I was like, so will you help me? Because I don't know how this works. I was like, can you figure out the mechanics and explain to me how this works in a way that I could assemble this? And he was like, yeah, I can help you out with this.
That's awesome.
And so my very first dragon, actually, he made a lot of the mechanical parts for it in Fusion 360. And then sent them to me to make pretty in Nomad.
Right.
And then we spent months working on this dumb dragon because I decided I needed to use ball joints which are like the
Oh,
worst, which is the worst possible joint to be trying to work with the first time you're doing 3D printing.
yeah,
And I
very
didn't
true.
understand how like supporting things worked, and I didn't understand why won't this ball joint print properly
Right.
because it's floating in the socket. And we kept the 3D printer, the Prusa was in our closet at the time. And so literally I would send prints and I'd be like half asleep and I'd hear our printer like, and I'd like wake up in a panic
Oh no.
because my dragon was failing.
Oh no.
But then I finally finished it. We finally, we learned and we finished it. And then and of course my dragon was, my first dragon was based off of one of my dragon characters. And then I was holding him and I was like, oh, I finished him. This is my child. Like, he's real. And I was like, I love this now that
That's
he
awesome.
finally works. And at this point, I had all my social Instagram and TikTok and stuff for my general art. And
Yeah.
I've been sharing these and posting a couple pictures. And some people were like, oh, I want that. Like, I want to buy one. And I was like, yeah, sure. Like, I'll send you one. Within about a week, I remembered from all of my previous experience doing these things and shipping keychains and jewelry and paintings and stuff. I remembered very, very quickly that I absolutely hate shipping things. And this is why I don't do this.
Yeah.
And I was talking to my husband and I was like, and my husband, he knew already. He knew when I started shipping dragons, he was like, this is not going to be the way that it goes. And so he knew, and so he was like, you know what? Because I remember I went to him and I was like, so if I want to distribute these dragons, if I want to sell them, do I want to keep them just like the designs just for myself? Or do I want to also sell the designs? Or like, what should I do? And he's very familiar with the industry at this point.
Right. Yeah.
And he was like, so here's the thing. He was like, you do not want to become a print farm. And he actually had some of the designs that he had designed and then printed and has sold several $1,000s worth of actually on like Etsy and stuff. So we had gone through the whole, we're packing dozens of boxes and shipping them out.
Right.
And he was like, we don't want to do that again. And I was like, you're right. And I was like, so what's the deal? Like, what do we do? And I went through the whole mental thing of like, well, do I want people can steal my designs if they get access to them and this and this and this? And he was like, the whole mental conundrum that all designers have.
It's a tough one. It is.
It is. But we talked through it and he was like, honestly, he's like, I think we looked up some popular designers at the time. We looked up Cinderwing. We looked up Flexi Factory. We looked up a couple others.
Yeah.
And he was like, they just do designing and like they're killing it. And I was like, so I could like basically follow their business model and do just focus on design stuff and like not even worry about trying to ship anything and like print anything. Because again, we also had only one printer at the time. It took 12 hours to print my dragon.
Yeah.
I was
Especially
like,
on the MK3.
Yes, I was like, I can only print 2 of these a day. Like, I'm not going to be making that much money from these.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
And so that it was really my husband's idea. He was like, and he also at this point with my illnesses and stuff, and at this point I've gone through freelance and book illustration and dog training and have been burning myself into the ground. And he was like, you need to find something that is sustainable.
Yeah.
For like you and your body and your mind, and that you're not going to just crash and burn like everything else that we have done.
And that's kind of what I want to ask you about. I know we don't have a lot of time, guys. If you have a few more questions, get them in the room. She's got another show to be a part of in a little bit. But I want to get to a couple of little things. And you keep talking about burnout. You keep talking about just your mind, just kind of, when you hit that wall, I think I've hit that wall right now. It's been a rough week, but when you hit that wall and, you finally realize it, because I think a lot of us don't realize it at first.
Yeah.
How do you go about, what's your support system look like? How do you work yourself out of that?
That's a tough one. I mean, because I have done so many different like kind of business plans and art plans and done this cycle so many times, I would like to think, pretty good at avoiding that I have systems in place to help myself avoid that to begin with at this point in time.
Yeah.
Like people will ask, it hurts the entrepreneur inside me, but I've gotten really great at telling people no and telling them, sorry, I don't have the capacity for that right now.
Right.
because people ask me for commission work for 3D models, and the entrepreneur inside of me is like, the starving artist is like, we have to accept all possible job
Yeah.
opportunities because we're not going to make enough money otherwise.
Yeah.
And in my brain, I'm like, I know for a fact I would very quickly burn out if I took
Yeah.
commissions again. I very quickly know I would burn out if I took on art classes, which I did have a phase of teaching art classes too, by the way, in
Okay.
like high school, college. And I was like, I would
So
burn out if I had to commit to those type of things, like on a weekly basis, these timelines, and also like accepting people will suggest new models and stuff for me to do
right.
within my Patreon. And I'm like, I'm not going to make things that I don't love because I can just like feel it sucking my soul, and that's what's going to burn me out.
Okay. So that's
You
one of your
know?
boundaries. So when you realize that something you're working on is not something you're passionate about or you don't really like, to shut that down.
Yeah.
What
Or like
does
sometimes depending on how far through it, sometimes I'll push through it, but like you can tell it's not one of my best models. And then
Okay.
I'm like, we're not going to do this
What are
again.
your other boundaries that keep you from being so busy? Like, how do you know, oh, I'm doing too much work for other people? Oh, I'm taking on too much at whatever you're working in right now. How do you decide where those boundaries are and that's when you're gonna be affected?
I think like me and my husband talk about this a lot because he's always like, okay, like, are you putting out too much stuff? Are you doing too many things? Because we don't want you to burn out. Because like you're in such a good spot right now, like mentally with what you love
Right.
and with how work is going. And I was actually talking to him last night I was like, we were talking about, this company sent me this build plate to try out. Like I got Asylum's live going on. I had Women of Print Talk last night. And he was like, are we doing too much? And I was like, well, the thing is, all of these things I am voluntarily doing. It's not like a strict, hey, you need to be here at this time every single week. And if I can't, you know, if I need to
Right.
just take a day to shut off and shut down, especially, my brain is not working, then I'm in a position where I have models that I've made out ahead of time where I'm not pressured every single
Okay.
new release.
That's good.
Every single new release is not being made at the moment.
That's great.
I am slightly closer to that line on Flexies right now, but I'm catching up this past week. My boutique items I have stocked up for like a month or two.
Okay.
And so I always try to keep a little bit of a buffer there so that those days and those phases where I like my brain isn't working. Like I made that freaking turtle we saw in my video. I made a video of a few weeks ago.
Right.
Whereas like
Yeah.
some days the brain and the hand is not working. Sometimes my body is not working. Sometimes I literally cannot sit up at my desk.
Yeah.
And so I kind of build in buffers for myself of okay, what are things I'm not strictly committing to something like every day of the week. And if I need to, because of my health or whatever, I can drop. And I am strictly, committing to delivering things for my Patreon members, but I'm doing it in such a way where I have built in a buffer system for
Okay.
myself so that I have days to go down. And
That's
my
cool.
beta testers know this. I work very much in spurts where you will see I'll put up like 10 new models in the beta test channel in like a week
Mm-hmm.
or more.
Yeah.
And then for a week, it'll be completely silent. And that's always been my workflow. I ebb and flow very much.
Yeah.
And so when I got into this business, I knew that was my
Okay.
personality and my workflow. And so I kind of built in, again, systems around that. And I've also, with my illnesses, I've gotten very good at just being like, today's not the thing that we're doing.
Right.
And like, we're
Right.
just going to lay down. And
Yeah.
I don't have a choice. So it has taught me a lot about boundaries within work and personal life.
Yeah, I get that. And I think I like that your husband plays such a big part on it. I like that he knows you well enough to be able to go, oh, I see the flag. Let me step in and say something. Or, this might be something that
He's like, okay, you can do this week, but don't make this like an every single everyday thing. Like, okay.
Yeah. And that's awesome. And it's great that y'all work that way. I think that's good. And I think that's a support system like that really, really helps. And he seems to help you in a lot of ways. And I know when we talk offline, talking with you and everything. I know he's very much involved in everything that you do, and I just think
Oh yeah,
that's
he's the
I think
best.
that's amazing. I really really do.
I
And
always
then we
tell
got
people he's the brains behind the operation, but no one ever
and we got a
sees.
lot
But
of
he's the
comments
reason
about
I'm
how
doing what I'm
awesome he
doing.
is. Yeah, we got a lot of comments about how awesome he is. But there's so much more I wanted to talk about.
I know.
But
We didn't even get to some
I
things.
know there's lots of things we just don't get to,
I
guys. But
ramble.
thank you so much for being here tonight.
Yeah.
I think looking at just someone who's inspired from their youth, following up with the support systems and everything that you've had stepping through till now. And then even we didn't get into, like you were saying, your chronic illnesses and everything. We didn't get into that, but I think we get a really good glimpse of the support system behind you and how that works.
Definitely.
And everything, guys. And if y'all want to know more about that, guys, she's open. She talks about this stuff on lives all the time, and she really, really just kind of lets you get to know her. So definitely, if you were interested in what she's doing, get over there, follow her. Now, the best place to head over to is the link tree, and you know where those are. It's in the bios, it's in the places, it's everywhere, and you'll get to find all of the stuff. You'll find her cults. You'll find her Patreon. You'll find all the different things that she is a part of and where all of her talented work is. And I definitely appreciate you being here tonight. Is there anything you would like to say before we close?
I also appreciate you so much for having me on here. I've been super excited. And like if y'all want to chitty chat more, I'm actually, again, my husband said we cannot be doing this regularly, but I'm going straight from here to a live stream with Pretzel Prince and Tasha Z3D. So if you have like questions that I did not answer, we can hop over there. We're gonna have a good time.
And that's going to be strictly TT, guys. That's going to be over on Pretzel Prince TikTok Live.
Thank you for reminding me.
And
yes,
so definitely get over there. I'll be over there for a bit, just kind of listening in and seeing what's going on there. But yeah, y'all go definitely go get Pretzel. That's why she messaged and had to leave a little bit early. So definitely follow her. But thank you so much. I'm going to drop you down to the green room. I'm going to close the show out and I'll come talk to you in just a minute. Guys, thank y'all. Thank y'all so much for being here tonight. I really appreciate this. I appreciate the people who stayed. We had a great audience tonight. We had lots of good interaction. We had a lot of people just asking questions. The likes, we're at 17K likes. Thank you so much. So we do have a few things coming up, guys, that I want to remind y'all of. Next week on Thursday night, we have Zach Friedman doing an interview. All right, I'm excited about that one. That's going to be a lot of fun. He's a guy I've wanted to talk to for a long time. Next Saturday, not this Saturday, but the next Saturday on our Discord, we're going to have a class on AI prompting. Our good friend of the community, Modern Magician, is going to be leading that. And you can find the information out in the Discord, but that's going to be on March 8th at 10 a.m. So come and definitely be a part of that. We've got Juan Makes coming up on an interview, Creatrix, Brit, Cookie Cad. I'm going to be live in New York on the 20th talking to Cookie Cad. We've got the virtual wine and paint. Check all of that out, guys. But thank you so much for being here tonight. I hope y'all have a great rest of your week and a good weekend. And remember, live life to the fullest, grow in wisdom, and show what you've learned generously. See y'all later.